season, we're going to be looking at all the windows that you see on the north side of the main sanctuary. They're called the Beatitude windows, and each of those windows depicts one of the Beatitudes, and today we're going to look at the first one. Now, many people have looked at that first window and wondered what in the world it was supposed to be. And if they figured out what it was, they've wondered what it has to do with the first beatitude, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The artist takes the picture from Isaiah 42:3, which says, a bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not quench. He will faithfully bring forth justice. Now look at your bulletin cover, because obviously you can't see the window, so I handily printed it out for you. And you will see a bruised reed and a smoldering wick and a rock. Now that rock is Jesus. And he certainly could just bash that reed to pieces and throw it away and grind out that smoldering wick. See, both bruised reeds and smoldering wicks were seen as useless objects in Jesus' day. Reeds that were broken and bruised were really of no particular use, because generally reeds were used as implements for writing, and they really couldn't be used very well for writing if they were bruised or bent. It's sort of like that ballpoint pen that you have in your kitchen that you keep pulling out of the drawer and trying to write with, and then what do you do with it? You throw it back in the drawer because you're Lutheran. And you have confidence that someday that ink is going to be restored. There were no Lutherans in Jesus' day. They just threw out bruised and bent and broken reeds. Likewise, a wick that smoldered was useless. Remember that in Jesus' day, people didn't burn lamps to make fresh scents in their homes. They burned lamps for light. And oil lamps that were used for light that had a wick that was just sort of smoldering didn't give out good light. So that wick had to be thrown out and replaced. Well, you and I are bruised and smoldering people. Sin has beat us up in this life. Sometimes because of our own poor choices and lack of faith. And sometimes it was nothing we could control. But it doesn't really matter, does it? We're still left behind a bruised and bloody heap along the side of the road, like that traveler in the parable of the Good Samaritan. As you and I are supposed to be like that Samaritan and help those travelers in our lives, so Jesus is the Good Samaritan in our life, who stops along the way to take care of us. We are the bruised and broken and smoldering people to whom Jesus comes. He doesn't just squash us and move on to something better. He stopped to heal us. He didn't just push us aside to get us out of his way, like throwing that ballpoint pen back in the drawer. He gave us the water of holy baptism and his own body and blood to nourish us and to heal us. And that's why, you see, the Pharisees had such trouble with him. If you see yourself as a roaring fire and not a smoldering wick, well, what need have you of Jesus? But if you're a tiny wick about to die out, or a reed that cannot straighten up by yourself, then you have a need for a Savior who will stand up for you, who will burn for you. The Pharisees and the scribes and the priests, they wanted to believe that they had all the answers. They were wealthy, successful men who did not need some non-establishment rabbi to come in and tell them how things were. We all have a little bit of Pharisee and scribe and priest in us. And that's why, honestly, we prefer to read the Beatitudes the wrong way. we like to hear the Beatitudes as consolation for the less fortunate. It's too bad that, unlike me, you are poor in spirit. But don't worry, because you still get to go to heaven. The Beatitudes are not about what some of us are, or some of us might be. It's about what we all are. It's what Jesus found. And it's what Jesus made us. That's the reality now. We were bruised and broken reeds, dried out ballpoint pens. How much poorer can you get in spirit or anything else? We were smoldering wicks like burned out light bulbs. How much more useless can you be? No matter what we might have thought we were, Jesus found bruised and broken and smoldering people, but he changed all of that. We no longer are useless and poor. Satan would love for us not to believe that, by the way. He lies to us all the time, hoping that we will forget what Jesus has done for us and what we really are now. Because you and I are the most powerful people in this world. We are heirs to the kingdom of heaven. Jesus told his disciples that they were capable of moving mountains with their faith, and he was not exaggerating. He has complete confidence in our abilities. Only we lack faith. He knows that he has fanned us into a roaring fire, no longer a smoldering wick. He straightened us out and fortified us and made us into mighty oaks, no longer bent and bruised little reeds. And Satan knows that too. And that's why he always lies to us. He does not want us to flex our muscles and change the world. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for our spirits are no longer poor, and we are the heirs to the kingdom of heaven.